really aren't faithful Christians until we're honest Christians, until we're willing to face the questions that we really do have, the questions that have nagged us, the questions that we've tried to dismiss that can't be dismissed. So we think this book will give people an opportunity to be honest about the Christian faith and what it means to follow Jesus in a world that has some questions about some of the traditions that have become so powerful that they can at times make Jesus invisible. Nothing is more irritating to God today than the bankruptcy of the church in the United States caused by so many fallen pastors and inconsistency between Jesus and the behaviors of the church. We want to highlight these problems and call the church to a deeper faithfulness to Jesus. And we have learned a lot about this from people who don't have faith or who have walked away from the faith. They said, this is the exit interview that was never taken.
There is a sense in which a lot of people who are in the churches and doing ministry get this feeling like the church that they are attending and serving cares a lot more about making things very Christian, culturally Christian, but not necessarily making people Christ-like. And deconstructors see that. And oftentimes that's what they're speaking to. So I think a lot of people in the church could use sort of a mirror of Christ held up in their face to say, hey, is your church creating Christian culture, or is it creating Christ-like humans who are the representation, the presence of Christ in this world?
People who have left the church may well find deep resonance with this book because we point to the problems that they saw. We try to give voice to the problems that they've experienced, and we try to amplify their voices in a way that speaks to the church about the critique that some of these deconstructors have had of the church. We think that they will find an affirming word in the stances that we take. Both Tommy and I have had our own deconstruction experiences. I had mine in the 1970s and 80s, when even as a seminary student, I knew far more about what I didn't believe than what I did believe. And it was through the gradual process of reconstructing the Christian faith for myself as a young adult that I came to terms with what I think is the sort of deconstruction questions being asked today. And Tommy has had his own deconstruction experience.
Yeah, mine happened while I was pastoring. And so it was a bit terrifying, but it led me back to school. It led me to working with you, and it led to this book. And so all of this is wrapped up in the idea that we all have questions. We all go through times of great turmoil and upheaval in our thought process. And so we want to lay all that on the table and say that we are with you, and we want to seek these answers with you.
It's important to understand that this is not a philosophical treatise about French deconstruction and the unraveling of a book on the basis of its premises that aren't held consistently. That's not really what we're trying to do. Deconstruction has become a word used very popularly for people who are asking questions about the church that nag them existentially and at the deepest level. We don't believe that the church should be held to a standard that is impossible. No church is going to be perfect. No church is going to be totally visible Jesus. However, we claim to be followers of Jesus. And we believe that the Holy Spirit transforms people into being Christ-like. Christoformity is what it's sometimes called. But many people come to church looking for Jesus, and they don't see him, they don't hear him, they don't feel him. And they think, this is not what Jesus is supposed to look like. We have found many deconstructors to be highly sensitive to Jesus and therefore willing to offer critical words about the church because it doesn't look enough like Jesus.